Hey guys, it's Tim. I'm here to talk about sociobiology again today, but now what we're going to do is take all that stuff we learned about animals and start to apply it to people. That's basically what sociobiology is. Do we see the same kinds of things in people that we've noticed in animals? Now, I wish we were in class because I would get into a big discussion on what is beauty. Now, beauty has a lot of different components, and that would vary, of course, by ethnicity, race, part of the world, culture, all these different sociological factors. But two factors I wanted to talk about, I'm not going to really ask you about them on the test, are body ratio. That's why I wish we were in class, the shape of your body, and also facial symmetry. Those are two things that we are attracted to. Now, what does that mean? Body ratio has a lot to do with the shape of your body, and there's four kinds of common female body types. There's straight, which is like a banana. I don't like the term banana, I like stick. There's apple, which is big on bottom, little on, or big on top, little on bottom, I should say. There's pear, which is little on top, big on bottom. And then there's hourglass, is just like it sounds, proportionate. Okay, and most women have been held to this standard, but I would argue it's like, some European standards, twig is okay, stick, and from Latino or, African standards, big on bottom is good too, right? Pear. Now, Singh in the 90s started to investigate this, and what he would do is he would look at A, your waist, and divide it by B. Now, I'm going, why didn't he just do C? C would be your bust size. You know these dress sizes, women. And that would go along with the hourglass, right? Because hourglass looks just like that, right over there. Now, what he found is when he divided this, there is a golden ratio, a magical ratio that men are attracted to. Women find attractive as well, but men are attracted to women that are point sevens or around there. So this point seven goes along with this, goes along with this, right? That's why I'm arguing it's point seven up at the top too. If it's an hourglass, hourglass means both ways. So when he started to look at point sevens, think about a corset, it makes you into a point seven. Look at these ratios, point seven. But that's not point seven. That's why I'm arguing ethnicity has something to do with it. See, I'm a white boy. From European standards, being a twig, a stick, is okay. Twiggy in the 1960s. But guess who wasn't a stick or isn't a stick right now? Miss Thing right here ain't no stick. She's even less than a point seven, right? Bam. Bam. And guess who's also in her category? Nicki Minaj. Those girls come from different cultures, have different standards, where curviness is celebrated even more than maybe within European standards. That's not always true, though. Okay, so point sevens, I think I have like some examples. They would go to old photos. Like even the Venus de Milo is a point seven, but Marilyn Monroe's dress size 14, but she's like a point seven. Sophia Loren is not a small lady, but she was a point seven, voluptuous, curvy, what we call proportionate. Okay, so proportionate is the most important. Now, I have this on here. I don't know if you've ever seen this one. Even after Marilyn Monroe, then it got lower than a point seven, I mean, higher than a point seven towards one almost. Again, a twig, right? Nicole Richie, people like this. And they're going, why are we going back towards one again? But I would argue that trend is kind of in counterbalance. I mean, now you got Beyonce, all these other, people that are out there that are counterbalancing that as well. Okay, so I have this old school picture. That's why we wish we were in class. In old school, it was good to be thick because thick meant you had money. Then it was voluptuous, and then it got more and more and more into little. I got one last one to show you, and then I was going to talk a little bit about dudes because if you think about point seven ratio, what does this all mean? I'll come back to dudes in a second. Well, we already said they're more attractive. They're rated as more attractive. I mean, okay, big whoop. Why? Well, one of the reasons is like right down in here, you don't have as many complications with pregnancy if you're more shaped like that. than if you're shaped like this, right? So it has something to do with your ability to have children. So maybe subconsciously guys aren't really thinking about it, but in the back of our mind, you have less complications with pregnancy attractive. And they have found that women that have 0.7 ratios have higher estrogen levels, are more fertile. And so if you look at this, when men are looking at this phenotype of 0.7 and say, oh, I find that sexy, it's like, yeah, but that also has something to do with being a good mother or being a good candidate for mating with to have a child. And so I don't know. I find all this fascinating. I wish we were in class, but here's a little graph about it. See, where you take, waist to hip ratio over here and say, how many children do you have? You can see it's like if you get close to 1 up here, you don't have as many people having a lot of children, right? And there's a break even point right down here. Now, I said I would pick on dudes, and here it is, because dudes should be apples, big on the shoulders, little on the waist. That's the standard, so that you look like you're buff. And so I'm not a good candidate. I'm more of a 1. You know what I mean? My shoulders and my waist are about the same. But when you look at this ratio, the 0.7s are what we find sexy. And I think I have one last picture to show, and then we'll be done with this section. And here it is. I don't know if you remember Neighbors, but like they talk about, oh yeah, he looks like, the perfect man. He's got that V that points straight to his you know what? You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh no, he's more of an apple. He's little on the top and big on the bottom, which is not a good thing, maybe always for a dude. Okay, enough about that section. Okay, the next factor that's important when it comes to beauty is symmetry or facial symmetry. So a lot of times when we see symmetrical people, we assume they're kind of perfect. And so we see their phenotype of symmetry and then say, oh, they must have really good DNA. Maybe not immediately, but it seems like, that would be a good, match for you if someone was symmetrical. Think about the opposite. If someone's real asymmetrical, like their ears are way off or their eyes are way off, you go, wait a minute, what's wrong with your DNA? Okay, so maybe it's not always true, but sometimes symmetry is the hallmark of good DNA. Okay, so look at this first model. She's so pretty, but I say that about all pretty girls. I made my own grid right here, and look at how symmetrical she is, especially her nose and mouth. And I think I have, yes, Natalie Portman on here next. Put the grid on her, and it's like, yes, she's really symmetrical, right? We hold models to this standard because if they're asymmetrical, they probably wouldn't be a model. And model means what you're supposed to look like. It's not right, but whatever. Okay, and so if we look at men, pick on men for a minute, look at George Clooney. It's like, damn, right on the mark, right? And then we see Ryan Gosling is pretty close there too. And I think the next picture is one of the prettiest girls of all time. Her name's Gabrielle Union. It's like, oh my God, is she pretty? Every time I see her picture, it's like, what? It's like, I think she's right here from Phoenix or something. It's like, damn it. It's like, you can see when I put the grid on her face how, perfect it is with her eyes and her mouth and everything, her nose. Now, I think I have one last thing on here and I'll be finished with all this beauty stuff. This is a real person, Valeria. I think she's from Russia. She's had something like 28 surgeries. She took a Barbie doll to the plastic surgeon and says, I want to look like this, proportionate, my face, make everything perfect and symmetrical. And it's like, well, sometimes that's too much. Sometimes you need to be a little asymmetrical or a little bit different because that's what makes you pretty. Okay, this next section I call shopping for mates. Now, I talked about this when we talked about animals, so I want you to remember the 2 goals. Remember, we have an intersexual selection because we're talking about how guys pick girls or girls pick guys. And so it's got that heterosexist, angle because it's all about getting together with somebody for the purpose of having babies. Now, when I talk about shopping for mates, I usually talk about David Buss. In 1989, he did this study. I've met David Buss before. He does a lot of research in this area. And what he did in this first study, please don't write all this down. I'll tell you what to write down, is he had people write down tactics that they use to make themselves more attractive to the opposite sex. So you just came in the lab, he gave you a piece of paper, you just write down a bunch of stuff. Then he collects all those over weeks and weeks of people. I don't know if y'all know Family Feud, but to me, it's like we surveyed 100 people and here's all the answers. Well, they don't show you all the answers. So what he did is take the most popular answers, and then he would show the top 23. I don't know, you don't have to remember this. Out of all those answers that got generated to couples. So in study 2, the couples would come in and they would look at these 23 and they would say, yeah, that one, not that one, but I did this one and this one and this one. Okay, so hopefully you're with me because that would be like the second half of the Family Feud where it's like, okay, here's the top 8 answers. Which out of these 8 did you use? But he used 23. Now I'm going to show you some stuff from study 1, but please don't write this stuff down. Okay, so male tactics. I'm already in trouble with number 1. Every time I'm around a girl that I like, I just tell her I like her. It's like I'm already fucked. It's like, damn it, I did it again. You know what I mean? It's like I try to be polite, but it's like I'm not good at, all this other stuff. Like I'm not going to be the buffest guy or act protective or dominant, and especially this one, lying about self or treating them badly. I do the opposite. I'm real honest and I'm treating them real nice. That doesn't work. Just trust him on what not to do. Now let me stop being silly and get on to the female tactics. When I talk about the female tactics, there was that whole thing about being choosy right up in here, playing hard to get, right? But then maybe not. There's kind of that duality there. We'll talk about that later. But here's the pet peeve of mine. That goes along with clowning, and even though I love ditziness and clowning, it perpetuates the idea that women are dum-dums. And so that's not a good thing. And so the other thing is you try to fit in with the guys. Now, I don't know if any of these are making sense, but I'll move on to the second half of the study. Because he got these 23 most popular ones. We surveyed 100 people. Here's the 23 top ones. And then he had the people choose the ones that they used. Now, you're not going to have to know 23. You're just going to have to know 3 if you can see my hands right now. Because men only use 2, basically. Number 1, they bragged, and number 2, they showed off. I wish we were in class right now. It's so great because I'll talk about wedding crashers and all this other kind of stuff, bragging and showing off. This is what I could also call Old Town on a Friday or Saturday night. It's like, this is why I don't fit in. I'm just real honest and I don't want to show off. But that's all another story. Now, how did they brag and show off? Well, Scottsdale, Arizona, you talk about how much money that you expected to earn, or I have a lot of status at my job, or this and that and the other is totally wedding crashers, or I want to buy a woman dinner, or I'm driving an expensive car, or flashing money, or flexing my muscles and acting real big and bowed up. All these different things. Okay, so enough about the men for a second. The sad part is when they asked women, they only picked 1 out of the 23 that they really used. God, this makes me sad. Alter your appearance, look pretty. Now, I'm all for girls looking pretty, but come on. You're more than just a pretty box. There has to be something inside of the box. I can go get a box from Tiffany's and put nothing inside of it, right? And so there has to be something to you. And so here's all these different ways that they altered their appearance. Okay, in this section, I'm going to introduce this term called cross-character assortment. It's a little confusing, but I think you'll get the hang of it. In cross-character assortment, David Buss has been talking about this so far. Women pick men based on dominance. You saw this in his research, and this basically starts this intrasexual competition. I hope you remember this right here. Right? Because they select based on dominance, then the men all compete based on dominance. So men don't select women based on dominance. It's a different trait. It's based on attractiveness. Yeah, it causes like a different intrasexual competition. All the women, start competing with one another based on attractiveness, but they're selecting based on different traits. But even though they're based on different traits, these traits become correlated over time. What does that mean? The more money I got, the hotter of a girlfriend I can have. The less money I have, the less hot of a girlfriend I can have. Do you dig that? And so that's cross-character assortment. It's not tall people marrying tall people. We'll talk about that later. Assortative mating. This is the opposite of assortative mating. Okay, so what does this mean? Let's say if you're this level of attractiveness, a pretty lady. Well, this determines maybe you can get a really rich man right up in here. But if you're less attractive, or let's say, take the opposite example, pick on men. If I have less money, I might want to be with this girl up here, but good luck, Tim. You're not going to be with her. You don't have the status. You're not big enough. You're not Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. Okay, so speaking of this whole scenario, this guy being with this girl right here, I don't know if you've seen this movie right here. She's out of my league. I love Alice Eve. She's so pretty. But in this movie, everybody in the movie is making fun of him because it's like, what is she doing with this schmuck? Okay, so I hope that cross-character assortment made sense. Okay, this next section has to do with age, and it's kind of related to cross-character assortment. So Kenrick and Keefe, the reason I show this older study is Kenrick worked here at ASU and Keefe worked right at SCC, Scottsdale Community College. And so what they did is they went all over the world and got newspapers, or they got newspapers from all over the world, and they looked in the back where the men seeking women or women seeking men ads were. And what they found is that older men consistently advertise for younger women, and vice versa. Younger women look for a little bit older men. Now, I think I have this on here. I love this picture of Anna Nicole Smith with her boyfriend right at the end before she died. I mean, why is she with this dude? Are they matching on the same trait? This is cross-character assortment. Pretty goes with rich. I know it's really exaggerated, but that's what it means. Okay, so age. As you get older as a man, to a certain point, it's great because you're getting more money and resources. And if that's what women want, it's like the bowerbird. I'm making a good nest. As a young man, you might not have as much to make a nest. Vice versa, as a woman gets younger, because as she gets older, there's menopause right here. So there's like this cutoff right here to here. So a lot of times men look for younger women down in here, if I can get all this drawing, because it's about fertility. And so women can get mad about that, but if a man seeks older women, they might be over here on the cusp of menopause and therefore have more problems with pregnancies, this, that, and the other. And so we talked about the thing with men. Now, these two traits start to get correlated over time, old with young. So that's kind of like cross-character assortment. Now, neoteny is a part of this. For some reason in our culture, we're fascinated with women who look young, especially women who still look like little girls but are full grown. That's neoteny. I call it being baby-faced. Now, I'm the wrong person to talk to about this because I have neoteny. I'm 54, but when I was like even 24, I looked like I was 12. That doesn't get you any play with the ladies. I'm telling you, the only thing it was good for is attracting a lot of gay guys to me because it's like, oh my God, he's just like a little boy. And it's like, come on, get away from me. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want a boyfriend. If I wanted a boyfriend, I could get one real easy because I was baby faced. But with girls, there's some features about this baby facedness that I want to focus in on. There's big eyes and then small features right in here. And so if I show some of the pictures I have, here's Betty Boop, big eyes and small features right down in here. This is Gemma Ward. She's a model. Now she's older, but when she came on the scene, I mean, she's like a little girl, big eyes, small little features down in here. I like Christina Ricci a lot, but big eyes and small features. You get the picture. This is Lily Cole. She was Marilyn Manson's girlfriend at one time. But if you think about K-pop and the Korean influence, it's like big eyes, almost no mouth or nose. And what is that? That's called anime. You know what I mean? Because on this anime picture, I like it. I'm a dude, but like from here up is a little girl. From here down ain't no little girl. So anime mixes those two things together, and it makes me think when I think about anime, how far are we pushing the phenotype that way? Just like with the birds that we like are red and then they get real red, or the widow birds that have the long tail and they get really long, are we pushing the female phenotype to be sexualized at too young of an age. Okay, here's where I usually like to have fun in class, and I wish we were in class, but don't forget the two goals we had of intersexual selection. When I'm making a choice for a mate, a man selecting a woman or vice versa, I might pick based on either good DNA or can they provide for me. Now, what I did is piggyback off of that stuff with Kenrick and Keith because they did all that research on classified ads. But what I want you to look for instead of age, we will look at age, but what traits are they asking for? And how does that relate to cross character assortment? And how do they describe themselves? It might not be true, but what are they saying about themselves? And so I usually pick on the women first, and here's the first one. Here's how she describes herself. Very stunning, focuses on her looks, on attractiveness. I'm attractive. What do you want? Well, attractive, but tall, 6 foot. That's kind of a sign of dominance. Stable, secure, affluent, successful gentleman who's athletic, golfer, and equestrian. That shit costs money. And so these kinds of things over Dom Perignon and bubble bass and those kinds of things cost money. Now you can see how the two things are going together. Attractiveness with money. Now, exotic dancer, of course, this one's really exaggerated, but 30, looks younger, focuses on her looks, has long reddish blonde hair, falls past her navel, this, that, and the other. But then it goes on, well, what do you want? Stocky or heavier men that are assertive and can hold their own in a fight. That's not Tim. I have full sleeve tattoos, but that's about it. You know what I mean? And I also love sports. But whatever you see again, it's like I'm attractive, and here's not money, it's dominance. I want dominance, like a bodyguard. Okay, woman seeking man. This is from Scottsdale, Arizona. It scares me because she says the only thing that makes her happy is cash in her account. The larger the diamonds, the wider her smile. That she just wants to meet men and be your devoted girl and work her way into your boss's inner circle and manipulate. So, oh my God, it's my worst nightmare. Okay, so enough about the women. Okay, let's pick on the men. Multi-millionaire 52-year-old man looking for wife and companion. Why does he put the cap at 26 years old? I mean, come on, it's ridiculous. But anyway, all he says really about himself is this: money. He doesn't say anything else about himself except for what he wants. Okay, so incurable romantic. I love this one because he's looking for a young lady. He's 44, so younger, and he says this to him. Do you seek the wisdom and experience of a financially secure hip older gentleman? I mean, come on. That's all about money. Travel, bed and breakfast, dining out. And what does he want? Attractive and slim. Attractive. Right there. Okay. Last one, and I'll stop on this section. I could go all day, but this one scares me because it's like, are you a young, preferably somewhat submissive and single living? Is your name Ted Bundy? Are you a serial killer? But he says, like, I have money, I have muscles, I'm educated and intelligent, all these different things. I've got it all. So you can kind of see the point I'm making, how two different characteristics start to come together. Okay, I really love this idea as well from David Buss. It's about negative if you focus on this word selection, choice, and competition. And so what does that mean? Well, if we talk about competition like a nest building competition, it could be positive, like you build your nest, I build mine, and we'll wait for her to come through, and whoever she picks is the winner, right? But didn't I talk about the other birds that sit back here in the background and wait for this dude to leave and go steal all his shit and put it on their own nest and pretend like they collected it? So there's cheating that goes on even in the animal world. And so this is about cheating, and that's why he has perpetrators and victims on here. So you can have a male perpetrator, and let's say if they commit a crime on a male victim, it's like this. A positive competition about dominance would be like you work out and I'll work out and we see who's the best. A negative competition would be like, I'm not going to work out at all, but I'm just going to talk shit about guys that are less dominant than me and call them bad names like pussy and faggot and wimp and all this other shit. And I grew up with this my whole life. It's like, dude, you're not that much bigger than me. You know what I mean? It's like, but anyway, those are the way the insults go. Sometimes the insults are based on femininity or, your masculinity, whatever you want to call it. Other times they're based on money. Like, that's chump change. My shit is long. You drive a 5 Series, I drive a 7 Series. Think about Scottsdale. And so I think also about gangster rap, because I listen to so much of it, that a lot of gangster rap is just this: talk shit about how you're the best and everybody else is not the best. Okay, so what do women do when they talk shit? Well, they start talking shit based on attractiveness or promiscuity, which means how much do you sleep around? It's like, oh my God, she's a whore, slut shamer. I mean, Easy A is one of my favorite movies. It's like, oh my God, she's not that pretty. She thinks she's pretty. Who wears that kind of outfit? And so instead of making their own self pretty, they talk shit about other people's pretty. Okay, that should make sense. Now, the category up here is when men force themselves on women. Male perpetrator, female victim. That's negative selection, right? You don't get to choose. Instead of positive selection, it's like, hey, if she chooses me, I'll, be with her. Okay, female on male crime is this. Oh, how's that a crime? Well, it's not really a crime because women do have that prerogative, but what really is that women using their sexuality against men that they're not going to have sex with. Okay, and so these two things put women in a dilemma, because here I get slut shamed, and here people call me a tease or a prude or all kinds of stuff. Men have a different dilemma. Here I can be called a prick or a motherfucker or all these other things. Here, it's like you're a pussy, a wimp, a faggot, all this shit that we have in our society. And this is why I like to show this, because it relates to my favorite movie almost of all time. This movie right here, I love it. And in this movie, if you think about our box, the T-Birds bust balls about masculinity and sleeping around and this, that, the other, not being faithful to women. And then the Pink Ladies, they bust balls differently about promiscuity. It's like, she's a virgin. She doesn't look at me. I'm Sandra D, brimming with virginity. Won't go to bed till I'm legally wed. Not me. I'm Sandra D, right? So all that competition that I've been talking about comes out in Grease. Now, what's the female on male crime or male on female crime here? Danny tries to act like he's just like, oh, I just sleep around and use them, and dump them. He's not really like that. He tries to pretend like that because it's a facade. Sandy tries to pretend like this at the end of the movie, like she's a bad girl, kind of like a slut or something, but she's really not that girl. Because, see, they have these dilemmas going on. She's really this girl, but she plays up like this because of the Pink Ladies. He's really this boy, but he really plays up like this because of the T-Birds. And so what I'm going to do to finish off this section is show a part of Grease where the two of them meet for the first time after summer, and then you're going to see how the T-Birds act and how the Pink Ladies act.
Hey, Zuko, I got a surprise for you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Sandy!
Danny?
What are you doing here? I thought you were going back to Australia.
We had a change of plans.
I can't... Well, that's cool, baby. I mean, you know how it is, rockin' and rollin' and whatnot.
Danny?
That's my name. Don't wear it out.
What's the matter with you?
What's the matter with me, baby? What's the matter with you?
What happened to the Danny Zuko I met at the beach?
Well, I do not know. I mean, maybe there's two of us, right? Why don't you take out a missing persons ad or try the yellow pages? I don't know.
You're a fake and a phony, and I wish I'd never laid eyes on you.
Whoa! Whoa! I wonder if she carries silver bullets.
Yeah.
Whoa. So she laid her eyes on you, eh, Zuko?
Hey, I bet that's not all she's laid on him.
You're right. Hey, Zook, I got a car, remember?
Come on, Danny.
All right, we got for your money.
Well, I swiped my brother's ID. I got $250.
All right, give me this, give me this.
Okay, this is the very last thing I promised. It's assortative mating, and it's just the opposite of cross-character assortment. Cross-character assortment was like rich with pretty, old with young. Assortative mating would say old with old, young with young, tall with tall, short with short. And so one of the ideas underneath assortative mating is phenotype matching. We've talked about phenotypes versus genotypes, but a lot of times when you pick somebody as your mate, they physically look like you in a lot of ways. Not just their hair color, but their bone structure, eye color, all these different things. We'll talk about this later. Sometimes boyfriends and girlfriends are mistaken as brothers and sisters. And so it doesn't always happen this way, but that's like the matches or the mates, that a pair of socks would be like. You look like one another. Now, besides phenotype matching, when it comes to assortative mating, there's this other silly theory. You don't really have to remember it for the test, but it's called assortative narcissism. Because the idea is if I pick somebody that looks like me, and the reason I'm picking them is because I think they're attractive because they look like me, really, I'm just saying that I'm pretty. So, anyway, enough about that. But what David Buss did say, I can get it on here. Oh, I forgot I had these pictures. I love this picture because sometimes you don't get assortative mating. It's like, that's not assortative. They don't look anything alike, right? But finally, what David Buss did say in 93, and you don't have to write any of this down, is people match on a lot of things. That's why I like equally yoked. I mean, I'm big on this. You don't have to go all Christian like me, but I am Christian folk, and equally yoked is important because, see, I usually just will match on this down here. Oh, she looks like me, and she's pretty, and I like her. It's like, yeah, but Tim, it's like y'all don't believe anything alike right here. You don't have the same educational level. You don't have the same political beliefs. Like, you might want to figure that shit out. But that's my problem. Is like I always go based on looks and not based on the other things you should match on, which would be a lot of the things that I just put in stars. Okay, I hope you liked today's lecture. I'll see you next time.